I was reading a post on an Instagram page called Morning Altars. And the guy whose page it is makes some beautiful nature mandalas and things. But on this occasion, he was talking about how fire is the true teacher. And he facilitates, I don't know whether he calls it a fire ceremony, but certainly a fire tending ceremony for kids once a month. And they gather outside and they take it in turns to be the fire tender for the evening. And he allows them to sit in the cold to begin with and look at the stars and just get a feeling of the nature around them and how cold it is, possibly. And then one of them volunteers or are chosen to be the fire tender for the night. And it's up to them to build the fire and to then keep it burning or not for the couple of hours that they're all sitting there and talking about whatever they talk about for the evening. And he mentioned one of the children who built the fire and only put on a couple of sticks on it, and it really wasn't going very well, and it wasn't keeping everybody warm. And the lessons that can be learned from that, and it seemed that she was astute enough to realise that she didn't give enough, and that the fire was representing her lack of giving to others by only putting on a few fire sticks at a time and not really building a good fire. And on another occasion, one of the other children put too much wood on, and he put all the wood on all at one time, and it burnt up really quickly, and then they were cold for the rest of the evening. And how that kind of talked to him about the excesses in his life and where he was maybe overindulging in things. And it got me thinking, it really kind of sparked a needing to understand that from my perspective. So I was lying in bed last night. I actually woke up at about 2 o'clock in the morning and was thinking about it. And I thought, yeah, well, that's a really interesting concept. So how do I tend my fire? And I have a real fire in my cottage. I have a log burner. And it occurred to me that, it's very important to me, my fire, because it's practically my sole source of heating. So I make sure that, especially in the coldest part of the winters, that it's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I rattle the fire out, make sure that there's not too much ash in there, not too little ash in there, that I get my morning sticks and I lay them properly, and I put a fire lighter or however I'm going to light it that morning, and I build. And this is all while I'm put the kettle on and waiting for the kettle to boil and make my first cup of tea in the morning. And then I look at it at half an hour later to make sure that it's burning and it's doing well, and then I can shut it down and leave it for a few hours to warm the house up. And I also spend much time thinking, oh, have I got enough logs? Are they dry enough? Have I got enough kindling? And find it quite not stressful, but it's a priority in my life to make sure that I have everything in place to keep my fire burning. And it made me think about my father, who always used to have the fire burning halfway up the chimney, and we did have a couple of chimney fires on occasions. And it really spoke to to me that, he was a man of excesses too. He had some sort of major excesses in his life, if you like, and that the fire, building it up so ridiculously high and ridiculously hot that you couldn't be in that room. You had to open the windows and the doors to let the heat out. And I thought that was, a really insightful thing about the fire. So anyway, going back to myself, I was thinking, well, what is it that the fire says about me? Because I'm kind of doing it for myself. It's not like I'm keeping anybody else warm at this particular point. How important it is that I've got everything in place for this good fire. And going back last week, I went and had lunch with some old school friends of mine that I haven't seen for, 40 years, some of them more. And we were all sitting around the table and laughing and just really slotting back into that space we were in at school. But it was curious to see where we'd all gone in our lives, really. And for the most part, we were all pretty individualists. I think there was only 2 people at the table who were still married to their original husband, if you like, and most of us were either divorced or not with anybody at all at this point. And we had a really interesting selection of jobs that people were doing. One was a BBC producer, one was a doctor, one, me doing what I do. There were a couple of artists in there. There was an actress, a couple of farmers. But, we weren't run of the mill. Not that I've got anything against bank tellers, but you understand what I mean. We weren't sort of white collar workers, or we'd all had fairly interesting lives. Everybody was very well travelled. Considering that we went to a school, in North Wales, halfway up a mountain, a boarding school. And quite a lot of us went there at a very young age. I started just after my 11th birthday, but there was a good handful of the women there that had been sent to school when they were 8. And one of them had been sent all the way from Fiji on her own, on an aeroplane, no shoes, sent off to school. When she was 8 years old, and there were a couple who started when they were 9 and 10. And I said to one of them, why do you think we've all turned out like this? Quite individual, adventurous, not run-of-the-mill people by any stretch of the imagination. And my friend said, we're all survivors. We're all survivors because we had such a terrible time at school, matron's vile, and we were all locked up in this school, but we weren't allowed out. And, and if we were naughty, you weren't allowed home for the weekend. Twice a term, you weren't allowed home. And it just suddenly dawned on me the other night as I was thinking about this fire tending that I do it because I'm surviving. I'm a survivor. That... the fire is a really important part of my life, and that I'm a survivor, and, where's the lesson in there? Really interesting concept that the fire can teach us all sorts of things about us, and maybe shadows. Is it good to be a survivor? As a survivor, do I push other people away because I'm making sure I look after myself first? Interesting one. So, how do you see yourself as a fire tender? How do you look at your fire? Do you overstock it, have it too hot, or do you not put enough wood on it and it goes out? Do you leave it till you're so cold before you light it. Does it speak to you of lack in your life? Let me know.